Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek, and today I am excited to bring you an open box video from PMG. And of course, before we get into this, just remember as always, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And also, we do have memberships. So if you see that little Abraham Lincoln icon at the end of the video, please consider joining. All right, at least view that video and see what it's all about. So today, this is exciting. I've got some PMG stuff for you. Paper Money Guarantee Corporation, which is the sister company to NGC, who, of course, most of you are familiar with as one of the top grading companies out there. This note is stunningly beautiful. This is for a customer. I was so excited to have it because I love the 1928 series notes. I really like the dark green seal look, the super dark crisp portrait of Alexander Hamilton there, and overall just a lovely piece. This is from the Federal Bank of Philadelphia. This is a Federal Reserve note. It says Federal Reserve note right there on top. PMG called this a Gem Unk 66. I'm not sure exactly what the overall value is on this note. The type note value, so in other words, ignoring district or anything like that, is something in the $175 range, maybe 200 bucks. Cool note, and actually you'll note this little part up here that says EPQ. That stands for exceptional paper quality, which they also, of course, note right here on the back. Exceptional paper quality. Of course, all of my values on these are estimates. You know, in the marketplace, notes are generally worth whatever someone is willing to pay for them. Same thing with, coins or anything else. You get your price guides and whatnot, but they are not always going to be accurate. Now, this note here, you have a nice silver certificate, 1934 C series. Funny, this is a vision check time, right? There you go, 34C. And you can see the difference right away. The Hamilton on this note is just in some ways not as bold as the other Hamilton. That's just a comment that I'm making about the way these were printed. This note's a little bit later on. Also got the exceptional paper quality on this note. One of the things that I want you to notice on this, and oftentimes there's some consistency with notes and grading, and that is the way money was handled. Oftentimes money got folded in very specific places, so it's oftentimes easy to see where the fold is. And if you look at the center of the note, you can see a fold going right down the center. Let's see if we can try to zoom in a little bit for you there. This line down the center of your screen right now, hard to see when it goes into the building, but in the open areas you can see it continues all the way through. That is a fold. A fold will, of course, always put you out of the uncirculated grade ranges and into the less than uncirculated. If we can. Okay, this is a grading trick. See this? Light behind. Now do you see that line? All right, so sometimes you'll see dealers in paper money take a light out and run it by, and that's what they're doing. So this one, they got the grade on both sides on these. AU55, nice note, probably a $75 note or something like that in this marketplace. Cool note, and did pretty good on that one. Next up, hello, lovely lady. Now, most of the rest of the notes here, if I recall right, were notes that I sent in that I expected to get nice grades on, uncirculated or higher grades, I think is what I was shooting for most of them, as I recall. For those of you who don't collect paper money, I would challenge you to consider buying a few things. And, maybe not collecting everything, but look at look at this note. So first of all, if you like the bison, right, this is a cool note. This is a military payment certificate. Of course, all of the line work on these is really fantastic. But also on this note here, one of the things that I just think this face is stunning. So this military payment certificate is Series 692, and just not only is she lovely, just some of the color combinations here, those little violet flowers, What a beautiful note. PMG called this mint state gem uncirculated 66. That's a high grade. I'm not sure the value on this because when I was looking up in Green Sheet, I got a little confused. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but the Friedberg number wasn't matching up in the Green Sheet. So I'm going to do some more research, but I think that's a $200 type item, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Now after that, I had a group of fractional currency that I did a whole series on, and I did series of, you can take a look and see and learn what the first issue of fractional currency looks like, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. And so if you have interest in currency, you can click on the link and find some of those videos. This one is the first series where they were called postage notes. Some of them were actually perforated around the edge like this one. And so that's pretty cool. And high grade, it did come back at 64. There you go. And the perforated edges, there's the Friedberg number. Friedberg is the book that tells you about currency. It's the standardized grading, numbering system is the Friedberg system, so that you can learn the difference between some of the notes. With monogram means that there is the monogram right down here, ABC American Banknote Company, and that was the company that was printing the currency for the U.S. That note, I think that note's about $300, $300 to $350, something like that. Next up, this is from the third issue, this 5-cent piece. And the fractionals I find a little bit harder to grade even than the larger notes because there's like less surface area to cover. You know, it's a lot harder to see everything that's going on there. You know, in my opinion, it's just not as easy to tell. And also, you know, when you go from AU to UNC, it's really hard on these. So that silver certificate we looked at that they were calling an AU 55, it's because it had a fold. You know, and on a lot of coins, I can tell really easy when I'm going from MS 60 to AU 58, which is one of the trickiest grades to ascertain for most people who are learning how to grade. And this is no different. I find it very hard. Sometimes when they call a note choice about uncirculated, it's almost like it means something different in currency than it means in coins, because AU is almost uncirculated, which means it's not uncirculated. AU 58's about uncirculated, which is almost like saying, well, this note's, it's pretty UNC, but we don't think that it's gem worthy. You know, this is a note that I thought would be like a 63 and it came back at 58. And it's a big difference in price because I think I had it listed at about $200 and it's probably worth about 75 or something like that. By the way, these were sent in on, let's see, the economy service, and it actually only took them about 7 weeks to get it back in. So this pretty cool George Washington 10-cent note is from the second series, and one of the things I like about these notes is all of the littler vignettes in the background, which when you take a closer look, you can really see the detail. You know, here you've got some steamships coming up to a port, which is pretty cool. And you can actually see that how thick the seal is that they stamped around George's portrait. That was a counterfeiting measure, having that second tier of stuff. And then over here, you've got more industry. You got people loading and unloading items. And the reverse of these notes were a lot more basic. But when you look at the stamps on here, they're almost impossible to see, but these little golden stamps in the corners, that is a part of the Friedberg numbering system. Some of them have stamps, some have none. And also something to look for if you want to find errors is that these 10-cent pieces, the 10 and the 10 are facing the same way. You can find it where this golden 10, the secondary 10 on the outside, is inverted or upside down. So the 0 will be over here and the 1 will be upside down here. So this note they called an AU 58 also, and This one, at least when I look at it, and I'll see if I can show it to you. I don't know if it'll show up this way. I don't think we need to use that because this is, my light's bigger than the note, so it gets kind of tricky. But when you look at it from the back on this note, you can see what I would call real fine creases on the corners when you see the paper shifted a little bit right there. So understandable. I will say though that on this note, you know, to me this looks like a crease over here in the corner. Compared to this 5-cent note, I didn't see any of those creases. And the other thing just to be careful on is sometimes when you think you see a crease, sometimes it is the printing from the other side. So this dark line on this side may cause what looks like a crease on the other side. So just a kind of pointer there. Oh, dude. All right. One of my all-time favorite things in the marketplace are these fractional notes that actually are hand signed instead of having the note being autographed. I mean the autograph. Instead of the note having just a printed signature, the notes have an actual hand signed signature on it. And so sometimes it's easier to tell from the reverse if you're not used to seeing this stuff. Sometimes it's easier to see, you know, that the ink is kind of coming through on this side over here. You know, and that ink bleed through is really a telltale sign that it's signed. The other thing, of course, is actually to look. If you look close enough, you can tell because it's a different color. And right here, not only did they hand sign it, and of course this actually washed out a little bit, the word register is actually handwritten on this note. And then so is treasurer is handwritten. And then you've got Colby and Spinner signatures. 65 EPQ here. I probably have all my notes mixed up here. Oh, maybe I don't. I think this note here is about 350. And one of the other things just to point out is that you can see just a little bit of ink up here, because actually on these notes, when they were printed in a sheet, I think these were in a sheet of like 4x3 or something like that, which I can't remember, but they signed them all and then they cut them. And that's why you'll see parts of the signature from the other note. This is another way to tell that, hey, look, that's these signatures, they start to run off the edges a little bit because they were signing a big old sheet of paper when they went through it. And I actually got 2 of these in, and they're the same Friedberg number. And this note also was quite lovely. You know, and you can see a lot of the crispness. This one here, a lot of these notes are kind of miscut. So if you look up in the corner here, you can see that the top line isn't straight. They're just kind of cut schweck. I mean, just a little sideways. And so that note there, who is this guy? That note there. That note came back at 64, and I think to me those little problems with the corners probably kept it down from a higher grade. This note I think is about $100 less than the other one. So when you get to notes at this level, you know, you're really, in my opinion, somewhat buying a grade, because like I said, some of these AU58 notes you can see creases on, small creases and things, but I've seen plenty of AU58 notes that it looks at a glance just as nice as a 6345. So if you're not going to specialize and go for the expensive notes, collecting notes in AU58 is a great idea. In my opinion, I think that's a really nice thing to do. All right, this is a 3rd issue fractional. And this is number 1294 in the Friedberg. And it has overall a really great look, strong strike. You can see the embossing coming through in the corners. That's pretty cool. So paper money has a lot of different things that go on that are different from coins, but that embossing is coming through the other side on this note all the way around. And on this note, they called this a choice about Unk 58. This guy here is a note that's probably worth, you know, maybe $100 or less. And then, but of course, in a nice CU 63 or whatever, it's probably a $200 note. So you can see the savings if you want to buy 58s instead of the higher grades. All right, so next up, this is also that second issue. It looks just like the 10-cent note that we looked at earlier. Let me grab that real quick. You can see that the notes were basically identical in design on these, except for the denomination was different. And then they came, of course, with the different surcharges on the back. So this one has those 2 surcharges, and this one actually has 3 surcharges on the back. These little letters up in the corners. And by letters, I mean, you know, letters. These are actually numbers. And you can actually kind of read these numbers, whereas on the other note, you couldn't really read the numbers. So this guy here, the 50-cent piece, I got to look at a little closer because I was a little surprised to see that this note actually came back a lower grade at a 53 than this note, which I actually liked a little bit more. Now also on PMG holders, sometimes they'll note something on the obverse, some of the older holders, but they make commentary usually on the reverse, though, previously mounted. Okay, not going to go there. And so typically what you're looking for is, for mounting signs, usually you'll have a little bit of residue somewhere in the corners. So typically, and they use, I'm guessing they have a little bit nicer lighting setup than I do. But I will say this one surprised me a little bit. There you can see a corner fold. See that? See that line, how it goes through the number? And it goes from edge to edge. That's how close you got to look at these notes, really, to see the difference between the AU and the UNC. But the mounting portion on this, maybe it was mounted the other way. But usually you see some residue, but I'm just not spotting it. Interesting. Okay. Well, maybe it just had an edge mount or something here. Maybe they're seeing this little bit of dirt. I don't know. I do not see it, but that's okay. They saw it. That's all that matters, right? So here is a if you've seen the movie on Lincoln, this Stanton note, I recognize Stanton right away because of this note. I'm like, hey, look, the guy, they got him to look like him, which is a stupid statement because ideally, if you're making a movie, you're going to want the guy to actually look like the guy, right? So these are cool. These ones actually have these fibers at the end. These later issues, you see some fibers kind of at the end. And speaking of previously mounted, now there's a stain up here in the upper left-hand corner, but that might not be from mounting. This is a much later series, and the design elements on the reverse are a little bit more simple or basic, shall we say. See, okay, you see that? No, there's a mark there in that corner and that corner. So this one I would have called mounted. Oh, look, they did. Good call. Previously mounted. But they still call it UNC 62. So it's also a little bit of a difference. You can have a note that's been previously mounted and still be CU. So in the marketplace, they do trade a little bit differently. This is, of course, the 4th issue. There was 5 different issues. This note is probably still, you know, maybe a couple $100 in the marketplace, being a nice CU note. And finally, we're going to go full circle here because this 50-cent note is obviously a first issue because it's got the stamps on it. And of course, for the 50 cent, they just went ahead and put down 5 10-cent stamps on the front. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And of course, this has the perforated edge where they made them with perforated edge and then without. And then we'll look at this note also. And I think we're going to find, there's the ABC, American Banknote Company. All right, well, I'm not seeing, well, there's a little bit of residue maybe up here in the corner. This note also they called previously mounted. But, you know, that one note we looked at, it was like, okay, I can see where it was mounted. And usually that mounting isn't in the corners as you look. So, yeah, it's got a little bit of something right there maybe. Hard to see, hard to know. They called this note a 63. Also probably a $300 note in this grade, something like that. You know, the mounting only takes the mounting affects the value a little bit like cleaning can affect a coin, but not quite. You know, cleaning usually you think is really harsh, really bad for a coin when it's on the label, but mounting isn't as dramatic of an effect, especially if you look at the note and you can't see the mounting. It's just not going to have the same negative effect. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Leave your comments down below. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.